A special thanks to our Man School sponsor, Phone Plus. Business telephone service, custom branding, marketing, quality, security, stability, guaranteed savings. PremierPhonePlus.com.
It's an honor to be here with you guys. We've been talking about a lot of things. A couple of weeks ago, we heard about being a man. And what is man? Well, I want to take it a little bit further than that. What are you as a man? In 1980, I was a crash. My whole life fell out from under me. I stayed drunk most of the time. Couldn't really figure out what I wanted to do. And a man by the name of Kerry Looney found me. And I think he was a godsend. But he reached into my darkness and he started talking to me. He said, Who are you? What do you want to be? And I said, I don't know. I said, I'm just a failure. He said, you're not a failure. You're just in a bad place. And he started talking to me about values. And he said, I want you to define the man that you want to be. And I thought, well, I don't know. And he said, think about it. You've been in the dark. How about thinking about in the light? And so I didn't know what to do. So we had a retreat at his farm. And by the way, you can now say to somebody that you know somebody who's been to the Looney farm. Anyway, he started telling me, he said, I want you to sit down and write the virtues that you would like others to see in you. And I said, I don't have any. And he said, all right, look around and see some people that you think you want to be like. And so I started thinking about it. And I, step by step, said, I want to be somebody that people will believe in, that they will see something good in me. And so I started writing them down. And we're going to talk about some of those things, like courage, like honesty, like a God-man. And I started doing these things. One of the things that I stumbled upon was in the Beatitudes. The one that I really didn't like was, blessed are the meek, because they will inherit the earth. Meek, to me, was a wuss. I knew a lot of those pasty-faced kind of guys, and I didn't want to be one of those. Until I found out what the meaning in that verse was about. Preas was meek. It's a Greek word for meek. But that didn't tell me anything until I found out what the word preas meant. It's a Greek word. It's a Greek word of how cavalry trained their horses. They would hit them. They would do all kinds of things they would expect the horse to encounter in a battle. They'd hit them, they'd shout at them, they'd run fire under their belly. They would do everything they could that might endanger the horse, but he had to be steady in conflict. And whenever they said that the horse is preas, it meant he was steady in battle. And I thought, I like that. I want to be preas. I want to be preas. And so I started thinking about all the virtues and values that I wanted to be like. When people saw me, I wanted them to see that. And so I started out with preas, that I would endure. I would stand up to whatever came at me. I was going to be ready. I would fight. I would stand up. I would surround myself with other people. I wanted to be in that crowd. And then slowly but surely, it happened. People who once knew me said, what's happened to you? And I said, well, God found me in the darkness, and he taught me how to be meek, prayas. Well, they just rolled their eyes like I did. But all of a sudden, somebody started seeing a man. I didn't think that. I was still scarred and so forth, but they started looking at me entirely different. And I started adding other attributes. And over time, I started feeling something inside me that said, you can be more. I thought, I don't know about that, but I've walked this far, so I guess I'll keep walking. Well, to all of you, I want to encourage you to be a man. It's not about biology. It's about what you choose to be. What kind of values do you want to hold? What do you want people to see in you when they're around you? What do you want them to know about you? I'll give you some ideas that I had. Courage. Lift people up, inspire others, trustworthy, faithful, generous, show up. These are just a few. And you know what? When I would sort of talk to myself in the morning, okay, these are the things I want to be. What this does is whenever you set your mind into what you want to be, the values you want to stand for, and what you want other people to see in you, it will happen. It's amazing. People would come up to me and said, you're different. I said, how so? They said, I can't describe it, but you're just different. I said, thank you. Well, fast forward. At age 46, I was commissioned a first lieutenant. Unheard of. But it was a dream I had. I was ashamed that I didn't go to war with in Vietnam because I lost some of my friends. And I thought, I just wish I had, but circumstances didn't prevail. And so when I got that opportunity, I was thrilled. I couldn't get enough of everything that was happening. Time went on, and I was assigned a squadron as their commander. This squadron had failed their inspection 3 years in a row. And I thought to my colonel, I said, thanks a lot. But I thought, you know what? I was in that place. So I just started talking to them. And I got them in there and I said, okay, new sheriff in town. I said, I'm going to tell you something. You're going to be number one in the entire Air Force this year. And they just rolled their eyes. And I said, you are going to be number one. And every time we have a meeting, I'm going to say, who are you? And you're going to respond by saying, champion, sir. They just rolled their eyes. And I said, every one of you is going to be success. We are going to be number one. You're going to be good because we are going to change our attitude. And I started out with those same things. When I started talking to them, they rolled their eyes and thought, yeah. And I said, oh, by the way, I'm going to beat you in your PT. And I said, you know I'm older than you. I'm going to beat you. Well, it pissed them off. And they said, no way. I beat them. And I said, you guys, you know I'm older than you, and you better catch up with me, because we're going to be one way or the other. And I said, let me teach you some values. Let me teach you who I want you to be, and I want you to see it. Over time, I was pleasantly surprised to see something in their eyes, because I kept telling them, you're going to be number one. And you know what? They were number one for 3 years in a row. I was proud of them. But the biggest thing is they were proud of themselves, because they had done something that they never understood. I want to share with you some of the words that I used for them and me, but I also want to tell you what happened to them, because I was walking the path that I had determined. You got to have compassion. You have to look at people and see their face. And you have to look at the others around. And when they fall down, you be the first to reach. There were so many times that I would see somebody that had that faraway look in their eye. And I walking down the hallway one day, and I saw this guy had that look. And I said something, and he called me a son of a bitch. Well, in a military protocol, that's not good, because I could have busted him and done a lot of other things. But something happened in me, and I responded real quickly. I said, well, sometimes I am. What's your point? Well, he didn't know what to do with that. But I knew him enough that I said, what's going on? We went in the office, and he broke loose. His whole world was falling out. I thought, been there. And because I took the time to see him, walk with him, and talk to him, he turned his life around. And he came up to me one day with tears in his eyes. He said, I just got to tell you, I wouldn't be standing here if it hadn't been you on that particular day. We have to have compassion. We have to be able to see the other person and recognize they have that faraway look in their eyes. And the hardest part is stepping forward and saying, hey, I got you. What's going on? That compassion, that you care about somebody else. There are so many people who are invisible because nobody sees them. Of course, they hide anyway, but somebody doesn't see them hiding. But if you are the man who put virtues in you, you will see that person. I don't know how many people in my squadron got to where they started watching after each other because I was telling them the same story. And sometimes they would come up to me and say, hey, Colonel, we need to do something about so-and-so. I said, what's going on? He said, they're staying drunk, sleeping in their car. We don't know what to do. And I said, yeah, you do. Go grab their hand, say, we're going to lunch. Start talking to them, because right now they feel all alone. And they did. And not only were they happier because they could see the improvement in the individual, but they were taking the experience, the note, to go reach out. Courage. Most of the time we think courage is about battle, being in a fight, standing up for something. But courage, from my perspective, is having the courage to reach out and grab somebody's hand and say, man, I got you, brother. I got you. There's no greater powerful words when you're in the dark and somebody grabs your hand and says, I got you, brother. You can be that person. A man will be that person, because you're deciding, these are the virtues I want to have. This is the man I want to be. I want people to be able to see that, because that is what is defining me. Those virtues. Go and watch the people who have fallen and lift them up. Tell them they can do it. It's not hard. It just takes the willpower to make that step. As I told you before, my squadron that I inherited was broken. I told them they could be it. They didn't believe me. You can win. You can do this. You can overcome. You can do all these things. You're looking at a person who did. I can't tell you how dark my world was, but I overcame because somebody inspired me. And not only am I going to inspire you, you're going to inspire each other. Well, slowly but surely, I would see these people grab somebody's hand and say, come on, you can do it. You can do it. And I didn't know what I was seeing at the time, but I was feeling something. But it was what was happening in response to what I was doing for them. They were now doing it for each other. You have to be able to say, you can depend on me. There were many times that we would go on exercises, and this particular exercise was in Georgia in the summertime, and it was hot. We did it with an Army battalion, and so one day I saw this Army colonel and he was chewing out some of my people. And I thought, what's going on? So I just walked up to and stood between him and my troops. I said, excuse me, is there a problem here? He said, well, you don't understand. I said, no, I'm asking you a question. What's the problem here? He said, well, I'm trying to tell your people. I said, there's your problem. I said, you do not have the right to chew out my people. And matter of fact, you don't have the right to speak to them. If you want to chew somebody out, chew me out. But don't you dare touch my people ever again, because if you do, I will be ugly. And he said, I can't believe you're talking to me. I said, I'm going to talk more than that. Well, I was fired up. What I didn't know was my troops were watching. And I heard him talking. He said, did you see that? Did you see that? Colonel, I'll delete some apps. They couldn't believe that I was standing up for them. They had never had anybody stand up for them. Well, first of all, that Army colonel was out of line. He should have never done that. If he was upset with something, he should have come talk to me. But the surprise was what my troops were relating it to. Well, I really didn't think much about it at the time. We were doing an exercise and had ordered some food for everybody. And my chief came to me and said, Colonel, I don't know what happened, but we don't have enough food. I said, what? He said, we don't have enough food for everybody. I said, I reached in my pocket. I said, I didn't even look at it. I said, go get the food for my troops. My troops are going to eat. And so they sort of looked, smiled, went back, got the food. My troops had never seen that before. When I kept hearing that, I thought, your troops have never seen that before. What was the commander doing? And I thought, well, they're going to see a lot of it of me, because that's what, I'm going to take care of you. Well, it spread with all the troops. Said the colonel bought off our food. The colonel brought our food. All throughout the day, I would walk into my office, and there'd be a bag of chips. There'd be an apple. There would be a cookie. Because my troops were taking care of me. Just because I stood up for them, they stood up for me. Fast forward, deployed right after the 9/11. We were on a Saudi base, but the enlisted people of the Saudis, they didn't like us. So we were driving out off the base, and there was this soldier, and I was in a back car, and another car up in front. Well, Erica Ruff, a woman, was driving the car ahead of me. And this guard stopped her because in Saudi Arabia, women weren't allowed to drive. But we had permission to do so. But this guy decided, no, that's not going to happen. So I looked out there, and he told her to get out of the car, and he was doing all this stuff and everything, and something went off in me. So I got up, walked up, stood between him and Erica, and I told him, I said, I don't know if you understand English, but you look at my eyes, because you will never do that again, because if you do that again, I promise you, I will kill you. And I will defecate on your body so you don't get the 72 virgins. You understand me? And his eyes got about that big. And I said, you understand me? And he just walked off. So I told everybody, I said, we got to go back to command because I need to report. So I went to the general. I said, I just need to tell you what I did. Because a lot of times if it's real bad, they'll send you out. And he said, don't worry about it, got your back. But the trickle-down effect was Erica and the other two sergeants that were with me, they were looking at me and they were rolling their eyes. And I didn't know it, but they were telling everybody what I did. They said, you don't ever want to get on the backside of Colonel Patterson. Said, he is a monster. And I heard about it, and I said, Nate, why are y'all telling me that I'm a monster? And they said, we saw you. Said, you will, we've never seen anybody stand up to anybody and protect us. And I said, yeah, you have. And they said, no, we've never seen that. After that, anywhere I went, there were 3 people surrounding me. I said, don't you worry about it, sir. We got you covered. And all these things started sticking in my head, thinking, that's what a man is. You have certain virtues that you stand on. You have certain beliefs that you stand on. And if something goes down, you will stand up. And I don't care how spooky it is, how much you are afraid at the moment, you will wade into it and do it. Because that's what a man does. But a man cannot and will not do it if he hasn't already determined the values and the virtues you're going to stand up for. That prayas. What will you do? Probably I'm over vigilant because experience. But I've gotten to where I watch people in the parking lot, especially for women, to make sure that some crazy person tries to do something to them. So, well, why do you do that? And I said, because somebody has to help them. And if I see it, I'm going to do it. Because that was one of the things that I said I wanted to be. I'll be courageous. I will run into the fire for you. Oh, you wouldn't do that. And I said, yeah, I will. If I knew you were in it, I would go in it. My troops started watching after each other. And they'd come tell me, said, you know, I don't know what's wrong, but Airman so-and-so is having a hard time. I said, go surround them. And they started doing it on their own. I was really proud of them. Because this is what we should all do, not only for each other, but your families, your friends. Because that is the mark of a real man. You have already decided you're going to be courageous. You will step into the fire if need be. You will get on your knees and help somebody who's fallen. That is a man. But a man without virtues is just a shell. So think about what you want others to see in you. You want others to know that you will be there if they fall down. That's a man. When I retired, my troops would come up to my parents and they said, Colonel Patterson was the finest man we ever knew. Because he cared for us. He fought for us. I didn't know they noticed that much. I didn't know they had seen what I wanted to be, that I was going to be there for them one way or the other. I was going to lift them up when they fell down, and I did. If they needed money, I gave it. I had my commander call me in his office, and he said, "You just gave $2,000 to the I forgot what they call it, a fund." I said, "Sir, why are you asking?" He said, "Nobody's done that before." I said, "I don't care. I'm going to do it because I see a need." He said, but you gave $2,000. I said, "I'd have given $5,000 if I thought I had it. Not because I'm trying to score any points, but that person needed it." And my commander said, "I've never seen anybody like you." I said, "I can't explain that." But the other thing some of my troops said to my parents was, one thing is, we know he's a godly man. He's never spoken about it, but we see him. We see God in him. I had people come up to me and tell me, "You were the father I never had." That's what being a man is about. Is that you start planting in your mind the values and the virtues and what you would do if. Because this world needs that. There's not very many men who will stand up. They also told my parents, "We know that he is a man of God." Now, this is interesting that they perceived that. Because as a commander, I was not allowed to speak anything religious to my troops. I understood why. It's because some people had abused that ability and were trying to proselyte their troops. And so they said, nothing like that. So I talked to them about virtues. And not only did they change, but they said, "We know you're a man of God." I never mentioned God, but I told them about life, about people, about values. I still get notes from some of my troops. So not only were you a great commander, but you were a good man. It's hard for me to take that because I don't feel like I did anything. But I just saw a need and stepped into it. I saw we needed food and stepped into it. I saw somebody abusing one of my troops and I stepped into it. I chewed out an admiral. I explained things to him. That what he was doing was not only wrong, but he had no right to be calling us at all. But once again, my troops saw it. And their eyes are big. And they said, "Sir, I can't believe you did that." And I said, "I didn't do anything." They said, "Yeah, you did. You chewed out an admiral." I said, "Well, he was wrong." And I said, I wasn't mean to him. I didn't cuss him or anything like that. I said, "But he was wrong." The rest of the story was, once I hung up, I went to see my general. I said, hey, I just want to let you know, I just chewed out Admiral so-and-so. He said, that guy's a pain in the neck about it. He said, what did you say? And I said, you really want to know, sir? He said, was it really good? And I said, my troops think so. He said, carry on. But the thing that was interesting is my troops said, he's not afraid of anything. I thought, well, there's a few things. But the main point was, they saw that I was going to be there for them. In today's time, there are not very many men who will stand up. That's a shame. There's not many men who will take a stand about anything. But we can. And what it takes, all it takes, is you to just write down a piece of paper and say, I want to be a man who does this, who stands up for that, who is willing to step forward. And you'll have a lot of people said, man, what's going on with you? And I said, why? I said, you're different. I said, how so? And they tell me, be that person. Teach your children to be that way. I saw the man who pledge allegiance. You're going to be a man. You grow up to be a man. Let your daddy teach you. These are the values that you want him to stand for. So when the subject comes up of that, what is a man? Tell them. When you teach your children, your grandchildren, your friends, or whatever, what you stand up for. Apparently, I had that gene in me a long time before I discovered it. When I was in the 9th grade, I was a runt. I was skinny. I was just pathetic. And so we had a bunch of guys that were just thugs, and they'd go around and catch you when you open up your locker and take whatever's in it. And something in me said, we got to stop that. So I had 2 other friends, and we talked about it. I said, next time those guys come down the hall, we're going to tell them, you better not do that again. Well, sure enough, the opportunity came. And so we went out to talk to these thugs. And I happened to be the voice, and so I was telling them all this. And I said, they said, who's going to stop us? I said, we are. And they said, what do you mean we? I said, well, I will. And I reached back with the best haymaker I could find. And I swung and I hit him, and he did like that. And I was real proud of myself. He said, you messed up, boy. They beat me like a pulp. They just traded shots. I was bloody. My shirts were torn. And the only thing I was really worried about was what my mother was going to say when she found all the blood on my shirt. But those 2 guys that were supposed to be there with me, They were no longer my friends because they ran. But the next day, these guys started walking toward me, these thugs. And they slammed my locker door. And they said, "You can't fight worth anything, but you got guts. So this is what we're going to do. You just tell us, the ones that don't bother, and we'll leave them alone. But those so-called friends of yours who ran said, they're ours." And I said, "They're friends of mine." But apparently that was born in me. So I just started adding to it. But guys, we got to start touching people, our young men, and say, be a man. This is what it is. You establish the virtues that you want people to see in you, because they will see it. When you've drawn a line in the sand and said, this is what I'm going to stand for, these are the values I want to behold, this is what I will do if I see somebody fall. You put that in your mind. Because there may be a day when something will come up and you'll be the only one who will stand up. When you see what I've seen, when you've seen the squadron that failed 3 times, and all of a sudden they have won every time since. Why? Because I believed in them. And I got them to believe in themselves. So when we talk about Man's Club, you start thinking about, okay, what am I going to stand for? What am I going to believe? What would I actually be willing to die for if I had to? Fill in all the blanks. My wife sometimes has said, you amaze me. I thought, oh, there's a shoe going to drop on there somewhere. She said, you're so nice, and yet I've seen you, and you're not nice. But I know that I'm protected no matter where I go. So is that what do you want people to see in you? What are the values that you want to be proud of that you hold? What does your family need to see in you? That's what being a man is all about. It's not about biology. It's not anything, but it's what you decide you want to be like. It's you deciding that you'd be willing to step into the fire if your neighbor's house is on fire. That if somebody came up and started beating up somebody else, would you do something? I said, well, I call 911. No. You go up and say, but I don't know what's going on here, but you better leave. And you have that in your mind, that automatically you're going to respond. Let me tell you what, the bad guys see things in your eyes. If I hadn't seen it, I wouldn't believe it. So, when it comes to being a man, define the man that you want to be, and you'll be surprised at what people see. Guys, love you. Appreciate being here with you.
A special thanks to our Man School sponsor, Phone Plus. Business telephone service, custom branding, marketing, Quality, security, stability. Guaranteed savings.
PremierPhonePlus.com